Hey everyone, it's Badger here for Vadim, and today we're going to show you 10 interesting facts about Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Let's start with a crazy one. As you know, GTA 3 and Vice City always had this cool option to load a custom-made skin for the main character. But did you know that this option can trigger a silly bug that can make the planes fly very close to the ground and go through any obstacle in their path? There's an oversight in the code, which doesn't break anything in the game until the player loads a specific skin. If the 21st symbol in the skin's name is the letter E, then the game suddenly sees an exponential function and recalculates the third aircraft's coordinate. As a result, the game corrupts the height coordinate and all air traffic moves into the city, and it looks as it looks. Weird. What's more interesting is how in some places the calculations can go mad, and the planes can end up doing this. No one would ever believe you if you described what you just saw. Since this bug is sitting in the seaplane function, it also affects other scripted aircraft, such as the Dodo with the flyer, and the Police Maverick, which has nothing to do with the Police Maverick that follows you around during police pursuits. But anyway, both of these aircraft mostly fly under the city, and their behavior won't impress you much apart from those rare occasions when they suddenly fly up from the ground and then fly back down to where they came from. But there is one more cool thing about this bug. It also breaks the Colonel's yacht. This is because the game uses the same seaplane function to process it during these missions. As stupid as it looks, thanks to the corruption, all the action during the cutscenes takes place underwater. And yes, it looks goofy, but eventually you'll realize that you won't be able to complete the mission all hands on deck because apparently Cortez can't breathe underwater within cutscenes and the mission fails. Funny enough, if the letter E in the skin's name is followed by a number, then the game sees that there's an exponent, and this affects the corruption even further. In other words, by changing the number after the letter E, one type of situation you can get is the yacht from the previously mentioned mission sailing just slightly above the water. Sadly for us, the mission scripts break, but at least you get a chance to sail on a Flying Dutchman. So, the bigger the exponent, the higher you move the yacht into the sky. If you're too far away, the game will start to bug out and give you other corruptions, such as character model deformations, and oh boy does it look hilarious. Every single second the game generates a truly unforgettable face. This, in my opinion, is the funniest part of this bug. However, I should note that this specific bug with the yacht only works if you start with a new game. If you loaded the save, the bug won't occur as the game uses the coordinates stored in the save file. If you were wondering, you can affect the aircraft height coordinates too, but as far as I can see, there's no point in playing with the numbers because no matter what, they will always spawn outside the map where you can't see them. Funny thing is, this bug was first introduced in GTA 3, but in that game, not only does it corrupt the dead Dodo and the air train's height and speed, but it corrupts the train's behavior too. As far as I know, this trick was found in both games only after 18 years, and this happened thanks to a speedrunner who wanted to entertain players with a wacky skin, and this is what ended up happening. Right now, we are located in Vice Point, and no, we're not going to talk about the beautiful sunset you see on your screens. We're more interested in the phone booth, which is located way far into the sky right here. You might be wondering, what is this doing here? If we open any map editor, then we'll immediately notice that this object is actually tied to downtown, which is located right here. Something tells me that this area is missing a phone booth, which somehow ended up in the sky thanks to an oversight. But the question remains, why don't you see it when you're flying nearby? Well, that's because it's located behind the map boundaries and it's too far away, leaving you with no actual way to see it. Believe it or not, there are other hidden objects scattered around the map. Take for instance this ordinary spot in Vice Point. Right here under the sand, you'll find a yellow lifeguard tower. I guess it's pretty obvious that the developers somehow messed up the height coordinate, but who knows. A similar place to this is located in Ocean Beach near the pedestrian bridge and the lighthouse. If you fly under here with a free camera, you're going to see these hidden car wrecks, and as you can see, they are placed on a hidden coastline. If we load an LOD model of this place, we will immediately see that it looks quite different around here, and this is probably how it looked early in development. As a result, these wrecks are nothing more than just a leftover from an old design. A lot of you may have already guessed what we're going to talk about next. Of course, it's the famous provocative poster featuring Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev hidden behind this wall at the ammunition in downtown. Some people think this is an Easter egg left by Rockstar, meant to be seen only by using the famous trick with the rocket launcher or the sniper rifle. But what if the developers moved it behind the wall by mistake and then forgot about it? Not to mention its texture name doesn't make any sense either. Sadly, we'll never know the truth. I think a lot of you are truly disappointed about the fact that Tommy can't swim in this game, making water the player's worst enemy. This, of course, became a popular joke and a famous meme, but do you want to know exactly why Tommy can't swim in the game? It turns out that the answer was already known before the game even came out. Years ago, the magazine PSM2 offered an interesting opportunity to give their readers questions over to Rockstar Games, and one of these questions was about swimming. Sadly for them, Rockstar responded with no, but they gave a good reason for why they wouldn't implement this feature into their game. Ultimately, it's a time-consuming thing to program that wouldn't add much to the game, said Rockstar, unless we put in dedicated swimming missions, which wouldn't be very gangster. And that answer disappointed a lot of people. When the game came out, the developers decided to remind players to stay out of the water in a very unique way. On page 10 in the official tourist guide, they say, "Shark attacks off of Vice City happen a few times a year, and there are more sharks out there than you would like to think. Best advice? Stay out of the water." As you can see, the developers saw no point in swimming in this game, but they later added this highly anticipated feature into GTA San Andreas, where it became a huge part of the game and a very beloved feature. Of course, modders always saw a perfect opportunity to add what people always wanted to see in the game, and there are a lot of very impressive mods out there, including one that allows you to swim. At last, players can now swim with the sharks in harmony. Those who like to mess around with the game files or look through the code probably saw a rather strange opcode with the name of "Set player has met Debbie Harry," which could be set to either true or false. But who is Debbie Harry? Well, if you didn't know, Debbie Harry is a famous American singer and actress in the real world, mostly known as the lead vocalist of the band Blondie, and she's not a stranger to this game either. One of the songs by Blondie, Atomic, is played on Wave 103, and you probably heard it dozens of times by now. But the question remains, can Tommy really meet Deborah Harry in the game? The answer is yes. She voiced the taxi controller, Doris, from Kaufman Cabs, and when the player completes all of her requests, the game sets this opcode from false to true, which makes all Kaufman cabbies switch from a regular radio to a broadcast from Doris.
Hurry up, all of you! We got tourists to rip off!
As you can see, the opcode's name now makes sense, and it looks more like an internal Easter egg, or maybe even a nice little reference. Have you ever wondered why the Lynx Bridge is so freaking lifeless in this game? Despite the fact that it's not a restricted area, this bridge has absolutely no vehicular traffic. Apart from the police, no one in the city is using it to get to the other island. If you're located close enough to the golf club, you'll also spot golf carts driving over the bridge, but that doesn't make any sense. But if you want to know why this bridge is so broken, get ready to say thanks to the strangest implementation. It turns out there's a weird check present in the game which disables car paths in the golf club, but only if the player is located outside of the club. When you're located outside the golf zones, the game makes a break in the car paths here and no cars will ever spawn on them or ride there because there's a dead end, unless it's a police vehicle. As soon as the player enters the golf club zone, the break in the paths disappears and the game starts to spawn golf carts, which are assigned to this unique zone. Now, you might be wondering, what was the point of making such a stupid check which only ended up breaking traffic on the bridge? Well, if we get rid of this check from the zone, then on some occasions you'll start to notice that the game spawns ordinary cars inside the golf club, with pedestrians driving around there quite recklessly. It seems like the developers knew about this issue and tried to fix it by implementing that strange check, which ended up disabling the traffic outside the club. The check does what it should, but it breaks the traffic on the Lynx Bridge. Was it really not possible to at least try to improve this? I mean, look at this. Without that stupid check, the traffic on the bridge will be restored. And I doubt you've ever seen this place so crowded with vehicles before. This is something that we're totally missing in the final game. On the other hand, due to the intense traffic here now, it's not so convenient to use this bridge anymore. The The road lanes are too narrow, and between the lanes there's a concrete median with lampposts. Thanks to that, it's very hard to overtake cars, and you're probably gonna end up destroying your car faster than if you tried to drive it to the other side. Maybe traffic was screwed up here for a purpose. Just think about it. If there was no check, then as soon as you enter the golf club zone, ordinary pedestrians and cars would suddenly disappear, and you'd only see caddies and golfers, which looks rather strange. Everything here is a mystery. But do you know what's funny? No matter how hard the developers tried to protect this place from ordinary traffic, they didn't really succeed in it. Very rarely you'll notice a lonely ordinary car, and very rarely even inside the golf club. That's because the golf club is made of many small zones, and these zones might have small gaps and imperfections between them. If you stand inside these gaps, the game will immediately start to spawn ordinary pedestrians, because there you're technically located outside the golf club zone. This will also work if you just go through them for a brief moment. If you're lucky enough, the game will spawn an ordinary car too. This is because the check that disables the car paths is enabled with a delay. So it mostly depends on your luck. Would you agree that the developers did something really strange with the golf club in this game? I bet you do. It's no secret that this game has tons of Easter eggs and cool references left by Rockstar. I think you know most of them by now, but there are some things that aren't visible on the surface. They're hidden in the game files. These would be some of the internal assets having rather strange and goofy names. The string that says Good Citizen bonus is internally called Good Boy, which is only something we would expect to say to a dog for good behavior. Nice job, Tommy. But not everything in the files is as cheerful. For instance, the air conditioning units on the roof of the Hyman condo are called roof shit. I bet that's something you were not expecting to hear. Two sunken ships in the ocean are called Seabed 1 and Seabed 2. I wonder if these air conditioning units and the sunken ships were made by the same presumably angry person. What's more strange is that this building's window textures are called windows. But to be honest, they don't look that bad. And it looks like the developers enjoyed using this word because it's also featured in the main game script file, where you can find a whole thread under this name. And this thread contains exactly what it says. For instance, here the developers coded the metal detectors and how they can strip you of your weapons while also remembering to hold them for you, as well as the rules and changes when you enter various interiors around the city. Pole Position Club's bodyguards, their behavior, and everything else that makes this place alive. The Malibu Club, and much, much more. Instead of making dozens of separate small threads for that, the developers decided to code it under this huge thread by the name of, and the name makes perfect sense. Since a lot of the developers were located in Scotland, they decided to name this building's texture containers with the famous C word, just for fun, I guess. The same bad word was used to define the string that informs you about getting new clothes after 100% completion. And now I wonder if it's somehow connected with the fact that we got this lousy t-shirt with a stupid print on it as a reward. Might be an inside joke. Of course, you can find more vulgar words in the game files, and you can't ignore the fact that all car wrecks are internally named like this. And it's really hard to argue with these names because they are indeed very trashed cars. And here's my favorite. They decided to name this wall of crushed metal like this. So yeah, that's the famous and strange humor of Rockstar Games in a nutshell. In one of my previous videos, we were looking at unused props and objects, and one of them was this ordinary bus shelter. By looking at it more carefully, the first thing you'll see is this very compressed and blurry poster, and people always wondered what was portrayed there. Luckily for us, we can find a better version of this texture in San Andreas, which I imported to Vice City, but it still doesn't help much. But why am I focusing on this so much? Well, it turns out that the developers took it from a real-life solution booklet from Odds-On's Rubik's Cube and used it as a texture for their game. What's more weird is that they added the Coming Soon label on it, but I clearly see a double M there, and I really hope that's a letter O coming after the C. Weird. But anyway, if that's really coming soon there, then this toy was already out in the 90s, so that doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, GTA Vice City is set in 1986 before this toy was even out. There are three possible explanations. What if it was some kind of canceled agreement to promote real-life products in the game? Or maybe Rockstar wanted to promote their own merchandise in this way. And honestly, it doesn't sound that stupid because they sold their own Rubik's Cube, but from another company by the name of Rubik Promotions. Or maybe the texture was just a temporary one, a placeholder serving no purpose. But since it was shipped with both games, is that considered copyright infringement? I don't know. Since we're talking about bugs in this video, do you know what was the most mysterious bug of all time? Well, very rarely you could spot a lightless taxi. Or in other words, a rare situation where a taxi is missing the so-called obligatory extra. Now, I saw this bug only once in the past, and I was pretty confused by it. You might or might not even be hearing about this for the first time, but it turns out that it's quite an easy bug to trigger, and here's how. To do this, you're going to need a car that doesn't have an extra. In this case, we'll use a rancher and we'll park it in the garage here. As soon as we open the garage door with this car, the next and only car the game is going to spawn will be missing all extras, and this is the only known way to get such a car. It isn't hard to do at all if you use a script like I'm using. In reality, it might take you a while to get the lightless taxi because it all depends on luck. First, the car that spawns has to be a taxi. Second, it needs to appear somewhere nearby so you can steal it. If all conditions are met, you'll get a nice civilian-looking car, but in yellow. Now, if you had no freaking clue about this bug, then most likely you're never going to see it. But it's not just taxis that can be left without any extras to it. You can also get an empty flatbed, but I think it would be nearly impossible to get it near Sunshine Autos. I think you will agree, however, with the fact that it looks quite unusual. Now, this can also screw up the 4 cars you can earn for winning the stadium events. Both Blood Ring bangers will be missing a roof, some decals in the back, and also the number. Both Hot Ring Racers will also be missing the rear decals and the roof number 2. Once again though, it's impossible to corrupt these cars on your own because they'll never spawn in traffic. The same thing can be said about the unique taxi by the name of the Zebra. It's impossible to mess it up. Funny enough, this bug is present across the entire 3D trilogy, but for some reason, it's only well known in Vice City and with the taxis. This is why people call it the lightless taxi bug, despite the fact that it can corrupt more cars and even bikes in San Andreas. Also, don't forget that Silent managed to fix this bug in every single one of these games, but at least you know the story behind it now. Another interesting thing is hidden in the mission The Chase for Ricardo Diaz. To remind you, during this mission you have to chase a thief. First you chase him on the rooftops, then through the streets on this awful moped, but pay attention to the car the thief is using to get away from you. The interesting thing is, when you're chasing the bad guy, his getaway car is spawned on the roof of a nearby building right here, where it's waiting for the command to be used in the chase later. Funny enough, you can spot this BF injection even without using third-party help, but you probably just never noticed it because it's a pretty fast-paced mission. But now you'll know it was always there. The next fact is connected with the mission Boomshine Saigon given by Phil Cassidy. To remind you, during this mission you have to get Phil to the hospital after a rather unsuccessful detonation of his pyrotechnics. Only a few people might know about this, but the developers ruined an interesting reference in the PC version. If you fail the mission on this platform, the game will tell you Phil Cassidy is dead. Now he's going to supply arms in Vice City. But this wasn't the original text that was present in the console versions. If you fail this mission on PlayStation 2 or on Xbox, the game will mention Liberty City instead of Vice City. And this is a direct reference to the previous entry in the series. The game wants to tell you that if Phil dies in 1986, then the events you see in Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001 shouldn't happen. And of course, we can't allow time paradox like that. Sadly, it's unknown why this cool reference was ruined in the port. For more videos related mostly to Grand Theft Auto Rockstar games, but occasionally other things as well, be sure to check out my channel, BadgerGoodger on YouTube. Vadim and I are also on Twitter, so go follow us there too. This has been Badger, and I hope you have a great day out there, everyone.